Cool. Everybody, welcome to this episode of the Healthcare Entrepreneur Academy podcast. Today we have Nikki. Nikki's a certified registered nurse anesthetist. She's former Air Force. She was a captain in the Air Force for 4 years. She's the founder of the Memphis, Tennessee Ketamine Clinic, and her practice specializes in the use of ketamine to treat depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, and she started her clinic in 2018 as a part-time, and then kind of worked up to go into full-time, right? So awesome. We're excited to have you. She's also got a little bit of real estate experience. She started a new real estate investment company, so we're excited to dig into that a little bit. So welcome, Nikki. Thanks for joining us on the show. Happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, definitely. So I used to like to break the ice a little bit by having the guests sort of just talk about where they're from, how they grew up. Did you grow up like poor, middle class? What kind of lifestyle did you have? Where'd you grow up in? And talk about that a little bit.
I grew up in a small town called Pontotoc, Mississippi, and it's tiny. Like, we were really excited to have a Walmart, and then we got a Mexican restaurant, which was a big deal. So we were living life. We were poor growing up, and my mom worked 10 to 12 hour shifts, like 6 to 7 days a week sometimes. And so I watched her kind of struggle to support 3 kids as a single mother. My dad was a flooring contractor, so he had a little more flexibility, but definitely, lower working class, and kind of had to work our way up from nothing really.
So where did you go to college?
Originally, I had this plan. I was always kind of a creative schemer, I would say. And when I decided to do nursing school, I looked at Ole Miss, and it's a 4-year bachelor's degree. And then I looked at our community college, and I was like, well, I don't know. They're offering to pay for my school, and how quickly could I get the RN to BSN? So I ended up doing the RN and then the RN to BSN online, and got the bachelor's degree with less than 4 years, actually. So I was kind of like messing with my friends that had gone to Ole Miss, and I was like, I graduated with my bachelor's like 2 months before you guys, and I was working the last year. So I was nothing prestigious, because I think I was always just kind of into the hustle of getting the objective accomplished. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
then I did
anesthesia school after that, I take it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What,
and
same area?
No, actually, when I joined the Air Force, they sent me to England for 2 years. And I did a great tour of there in Europe, and got a lot of battlefield trauma experience, which is where I started to see the PTSD. So that's kind of where my passion developed. And I did 2 years stateside in Idaho. And that's where I started to see more of the suicidal tendencies with the soldiers. And even my old commander from overseas ended up committing suicide. So that's where I kind of got the exposure to that and the passion for that. Now, after that, the GI Bill sent me back to anesthesia school. So it was, anesthesia providers in the military are just heroes. They're just the person that walks in and saves the day. So I had to go be one of my heroes.
Right, exactly. That's awesome. So you practiced in the Air Force for 4 full years in England, and what did you do when you got out after that 4 years?
I just went directly into anesthesia school from there. With the GI Bill, which I honestly didn't even expect. I wasn't really sure how that worked when I went in. But yeah, after I separated, they said, you got 3 more years of college paid for if you want to go somewhere. So I was like, well, all right, let's do anesthesia then.
Okay.
So, cool. So I just jumped right in from there. So I was already used to being in the military and being controlled. So anesthesia school was just like, smooth transition.
Yeah, anesthesia school is sort of like a boot camp.
I was like, oh, it's the same. Okay, all right. Yeah. I like this.
Awesome. So did you have any entrepreneurial sort of background before you started your ketamine practice, or was that the first go at it?
Well, I'd watched my father with his flooring business, and my uncle has a software company. And so I'd kind of observed him from afar during startup, and kind of the struggle and the genius behind it all. And, and they're very successful now. So they were my inspiration. But as far as myself, just a few little real estate flips here and there was my only entrepreneurial experience.
Okay. What was it about watching your uncle that really sort of got you interested in entrepreneurship? Was there anything special that was going on behind the scenes that you just were like, I think I want to do that? Or
Yes, absolutely. First of all, it's my uncle and his husband are the most wonderful, generous people I've ever met in my life. And what I saw was a passion. So they took this passion for life and their generous heart. They're so generous. And they created a business that allowed them flexibility to be a family, which is the most important thing in my opinion. And it allowed them, they do just so many fundraisers and so many, generous things. They've built wells in India, and they strive for quality of life. So watching that and watching them build a company that was based around creating the quality of life for their employees was the most inspirational thing I had ever seen. So when I went into corporate anesthesia, it was a shock to my system. I was like, this doesn't have to be this way. Why are we working so hard? And why are we, denying ourselves this time with our family? And people would always tell me that's the way it is. I'm like, no, that's the way it was in the military, but we're free people. I don't think you understand. Like I did my time and I'm in the civilian world now. So, and that's just how companies work, is what I would hear. But then I would say, no, I'm looking at an example right now of a company that it's Next Year Solution is the name. But they don't count vacation days. If you have your work done, you go on vacation. You can come in late if you have a doctor's appointment. You just kind of work with that. 1 week out of a year, everyone gets to do fundraisers for their chosen charity, and then the company matches it. So seeing that as opposed to this cold corporate structure of put in your 40 and 50 hours a week and your family comes second, it just inspired me to branch out and create a life that I wanted to be in.
Yeah, that's great. That's actually one of my biggest reasons why I left full-time anesthesia. It's turned into just nothing but corporations running the anesthesia departments now, and they could care less about, most of them could care less, not everybody, but it seems like most of these corporations could just care less about you as an individual, and they're just more interested in how much revenue you can generate. And that was kind of frustrating, and I can totally agree that that's one of the major benefits of becoming an entrepreneur is that you have control of your time. You can spend time with your family. You can focus on actually treating your employees the way they should be treated. Like everything's in your power. And it's one of the biggest benefits. You set your own destiny. So I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you started your ketamine practice, what did that sort of whole experience look like? What kind of research did you do ahead of time? Tell us a little bit about walking into starting your own private practice when you hadn't done that before.
Well, I definitely went through the Ketamine Academy, and it was absolutely worth it because even though I'd seen business structures of non-medical, companies, it didn't prepare me for medical, owning a clinic like that's, I assume, there are courses for that, but ketamine specifically being this new area of neuroscience and psychology and anesthesia all blending together, it was nice to have a place where I could go and get specific training for ketamine clinics, and it encompassed the business model as well. And, here's the kind of paperwork you need. Here's how to set up your websites and your domains and just things that I have no experience in whatsoever. So that really was the empowering point for me. Once I did that course, and I initially started it saying, okay, this may be something that leads me to do this business. If not, it's a great educational experience, right? So either way. But after going through it, I knew it was possible. I was like, well, these are the tools I need. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. Of course, I was told, well, you can't do that. You have a full-time job. And I'm the kind of person that doesn't take can't for an answer. So I was like, well, how can I do that? How about let's think of it that way? And I found a surgeon, Dr. Goshorn, that was willing to partner with me and just kind of say, Nick, I believe in what you're trying to do here. People are struggling. They're suffering with depression. Suicide is a terrible epidemic. We'll give you a little 3-month trial run. We'll do, some initial patients and see how they do. And then if it is effective, we'll keep going. If it's not effective, then we can pull the plug, cut our losses. And of course, after the 3-month period, we did 21 patients and 18 of them just turned their lives around completely. It was wonderful. So we were like, well, we can't stop it now. So we have to keep doing this. I mean, it's almost like a moral obligation at this point. So
right. A lot of people don't know how effective the ketamine is, and it's pretty unbelievable, especially when you have, you get to witness it firsthand. You have patients and their families literally coming in and in tears at how well they feel and how grateful they are. It's like absolutely amazing. When you were like getting ready to start your practice up, did you use any other resources? Did you use like a podcast, any books? Did you network with anybody who had a practice in your state to kind of help you along the way?
I obviously went through the Ketamine Academy and kind of stuff like that. And I think as this practice grows and as the science of ketamine grows, we've been making more connections and keeping in touch in different ways in different forums with other clinics. And I think that's really vital to share information and to share results and research. And, this protocol works, or, hey, I found this new technique that, works better, decreases anxiety, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, definitely. What advice would you give to somebody who's looking to start any sort of private practice and they're kind of just on the fence, they're a little fearful? Any words of wisdom that you would give to anybody looking to do that? Like how to educate themselves, or how to get prepared for that process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it's, ketamine specifically, I would say, it never hurts to do the little Ketamine Academy course. That way you can see what it is, what it takes. If it's just, private practice in general, I think you actually have some programs. Education is the first step, I think, because, if you're not educated on what you're doing, you probably have a right to be a little fearful, because not being aware of what your regulations are and what you're going to face, that should inspire a little fear. But if you've done the research and you've got your ducks in a row and you believe in yourself and you're a very driven person and you're willing to put in the work that it takes to be a business owner, which is a whole other story, but it's flexible, but it's a lot of work. So, it's a trade-off. But I would say most people in this world seem to be controlled by fear. And there were a lot of people that came to me when I started this and said, why would you give up a stable income for something you're not sure about? Why would you take a risk? You have a family. And honestly, it's for the family. It's for the flexibility and the fact that I get to be mom now. I get to be there. I don't miss school functions now. I don't miss important days now. And it was completely worth it for me. But if you let fear drive every decision you make, you really can't achieve greatness, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% true. And the thing that mitigates fear, like you said, is education. And there's a million different places you can go. There's so many books. There's so many podcasts now. If anybody's not listening to podcasts, this show is a podcast. So you're listening here, obviously, but there's 500,000 podcasts now, and business is the largest category. So if you want a little bit of business know-how, get your headphones on and listen to a podcast and stop wasting time listening to, I don't know, whatever music you listen to in the car, or watching Ricky Lake. Is Ricky Lake even still on? I don't even know. But you get what I'm saying.
They really are.
Yeah, there's so much time that people waste where they could be educating themselves and getting prepared to take control of their own situation through entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
That's one of the things I'm trying to do with this podcast is, there's not a lot of healthcare specific entrepreneurship resources out there. There's some books and some of them are not so good. I bought quite a few of them. So I think this show hopefully will bring that full circle and get a little bit of healthcare into the business section of iTunes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
We need that because it is a very intricate industry, especially if you're going to be dealing with insurance, which at the moment we're not too, heavy on the insurance, but When you deal with medical regulations and insurance regulations, it's very complicated. So we do need something more specific to healthcare.
Exactly. And you had mentioned you talked a little bit about how other people sort of were judging you and thinking that, you're doing the risky thing by becoming an entrepreneur. I've done a video on this. So I totally understand what happens there, where people try to discourage you out of their own fear. And that's something that's really common and that anybody can expect as they're getting geared up to start a business. You're going to have the mentality of 9-to-5ers trying to push that onto you. And so that's something you'll have to be prepared for. Is there anything that you use to sort of get yourself through that? Did you have any entrepreneurs in your network nowadays that you could bounce ideas off of and keep you motivated? And because that's a tough thing. It's just getting past that mindset of, am I taking a risk? Everybody's telling me I'm taking a risk. And it is a risk, but
yes. My uncle, I go back, it's Garrett Gray and Wayne Butler that own the company, and they've always been amazing human rights advocates, and they lead from the heart. And, Wayne sat down with me and he goes, Nikki, when we started up, we were 30 grand in the hole just to make payroll. And he's like, we weren't always doing this well. You have to understand that if you're afraid to fail, then you're never going to succeed. You need to understand that failure is actually a part of the process. You need to fail to learn. And people who are fearful look at failure and say, okay, I told you so. See that? You failed. But people who have that true entrepreneurial mindset, they look at failure and say, thank you for the lesson. Now I know better. Now let's try this. Let's try something new. So they were so encouraging to me along the way, just kind of saying, expect failure, expect obstacles, so that when I hit those roadblocks and I hit the criticism and I hit, the potential, loss of maybe business relationships that people weren't very happy about what I was doing, it wasn't such a shock. I knew it was going to happen. I saw it coming and I was okay with it, because things that are worth it don't really come easy. And then I'll say this, another podcast that I love is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I love him. He's amazing. And pretty much anybody he endorses, I go, I know, right? Yeah.
I got like 4 of his books. I love this guy.
He's the best. And he helps keep that mindset. And, he always helps me. Perfect. Yes, you got it. It's just, he teaches you how to think like someone who is an entrepreneur, and how to think in a way that you can actually build wealth and not just work every hour for every dollar you earn, because you can't give your anesthesia degree to your kids. You just can't. It's not a legacy to pass down, and it's not wealth, and you're never going to earn your way to financial freedom. And that's one of the quotes I stole from him. And, I believe it wholeheartedly. So he's definitely a major mentor in my life.
Yeah, he was one of the first books I read. This one, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and followed up by the Cash Flow Quadrant. Phenomenal book. And this will be like the first book I would recommend to anybody to sort of get your mindset shifted from that 9-to-5 sort of mentality, because he puts a totally different, shines a different light on that. And he really digs in on what he thinks about it. And he's totally right. Like, you're trading your time for dollars if you're an employee, and it's not scalable. Like, at some point you can only work 90 hours a week maximum before you keel over. And so your income's limited, and there's nothing to pass on. If you get sick or you die or whatever, then you have nothing to pass on. Just like Nikki mentioned, that's the end of the road there. So if you have a business, you have an income stream that you can pass on to your family members. And if you want to take time off, that business can still create income for you. So it's a great model to financial freedom for sure. Entrepreneurship is. You had mentioned that starting a clinic is a ton of work. It totally is. Some people just think that it's going to be like an easy road, but the saying is, like, an entrepreneur is like one of the few types of people who they'll go to work and work 80 hours for themselves just so they don't have to go and work 40 or 50 hours for somebody else.
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. So can you speak to that just a little bit more?
Oh, it's so much more work. And that was another thing from my, the people who were kind of my critics, lovingly criticizing. I'll say that, not in a negative way, but they were like, well, look at how many hours you put in. Wasn't that defeating the purpose? And, I'm like, well, I do also understand that starting up is a big task and a huge undertaking, and you're building a business model and business processes, and you're constantly revising processes as you grow. And, and we're in kind of a rapid growth phase right now where I'm having to completely revamp the business process, because I'm like, all right, we got to split some of these into 2 jobs and hire more people. And, it's constantly an evolving thing, but the goal is eventually you do kind of have it leveled out and figured out, and it can run independently. But it is definitely a lot of work, but I still wouldn't trade it, because no one tells me, no, you can't go to your kid's Valentine's Day party. You can't go to Muffins with Mom, which is a cute little thing our school does. I get to go to those things. And if it means I stay up till midnight, I would trade that any day, because, they got to see me at school. They're sleeping. I can do the work. That's fine. So it is a trade-off, though. So if people, and there are people who do have the 9-to-5 mindset, and they also prefer to say, when I clock out, I'm out, and I want to go home and not think about work. And that's okay too. It's just not what I prefer for my life. So.
Yeah, for sure. The startup phase is definitely pretty intensive, but the whole goal is to, over time, create systems and processes and have your staff be able to follow those systems and processes so that you don't have to be there all the time. And in the startup phase, it's a lot of problem solving and putting all those systems in place and protocols and procedures in place, so that way everything's running smoothly and it doesn't require your 100% your attention and you have to be there all the time. So yeah, it's
like raising a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. But the rewards are that you don't have to, be beholden to your employer and begging for a day off. The straw that broke the camel's back for me, I mean, I've always been interested in business and entrepreneurship, and I was doing my own side thing, but was when my employer, we had a newborn daughter, Aria, and she was born 4 weeks premature. And I had asked for 2 days off, and I volunteered to find my own shift coverage, and they flat out told me no, I couldn't have those days off. I offered to find my own coverage. I offered to cover the shift differential that they might have to pay somebody, and they flat out said, no, you're not having off. And so that was it for me. I was like, I'm done working for corporate anesthesia groups because I don't have any control over anything, my schedule, nothing. And that's totally worth the extra hours at the beginning, at least in my opinion. Because when it comes time to the 4th of July or any other holiday or birthday or dance recital or anything that's going to be coming up, I can just say, I'm not going to work that day. It's my business. I can take off if I want to. So yeah, huge benefit.
Absolutely. And, I even try to do that with our employees. I'll say, all right, let me know what your vacation days are so we can schedule around it. And so, they kind of submit like, hey, we have a guys weekend here, and, we have, this half day here. And so I do my best, and we've been really good at doing it so far, at kind of working. And I tell people I want this to be a quality of life job, just like my uncles have created. Yeah. Obviously reasonable, but it's I don't want people that work for me missing quality time with their family either.
Yeah, I love that. You're not only in control of your own lives, but your employees' lives and schedule too, and you can make it really nice for them. And then they never want to leave. Like they're just dedicated employees. They love the position and they love how you treat them. So yeah, that's great. When it comes to employees, that's kind of like a catching point for a lot of people, because a lot of people, it's really easy to be a solopreneur, have your own business, just do your own thing. But when it comes to working with employees, finding employees, interviewing employees, what would be your advice there? Because that's sort of like the first milestone of an entrepreneur, is getting staff and managing the staff and selecting the right staff. Any advice you have there?
That's the biggest challenge, I think, so far, because it's your baby. You want someone you can trust. I think having trustworthy people who are actually capable of doing the job you're giving them, loyal employees is a big deal. And I've been really selective with who I hire. And a lot of times it's through people we know, whether it be, even a family member, depending, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. For me, it's been great. My brother is actually our office manager. And so he was a finance manager for a while. So it's kind of perfect. He's taken over. He kind of pushes me away. He's like, I got this, get out of here. You're ruining it. So it's great. And then, it's kind of, we vet them through people we know more so. I haven't done any, what I would call a cold interview, just calling of candidates and have that cold interview with someone that wasn't recommended. So I don't have any experience there, but I'm extremely cautious with who I bring in.
Yeah. They always say, what's the saying? Hire slowly, fire quickly, something like that. But yeah, that's totally true. For me, that was one of the hardest parts. When I started my ketamine clinic in Albuquerque, which was the first business where I had to hire employees, we didn't know anybody because we'd only been there not very long. So we didn't like have a bunch of friends in the area. We just moved there from Orlando. So finding referrals was sort of a challenge, and finding any employees was sort of a challenge. And it came to bite us in the butt a few times. Well, once because we hired the wrong person and she was just toxic. So one thing that I found useful, just me personally, was using an interview software called SparkHire, and just sort of eliminating people who aren't even willing to like put in the work to do an interview that doesn't take up any of your time. So essentially you record your interview questions, or you can just, you can even just type them up. But the SparkHire app, there's several different things like that, but you can just send candidates interview questions, and doesn't take you any time to like meet up with them for their initial interview. Essentially, it's all online and it's all recorded. And that's a really good way to eliminate some people, because you'll find that some don't even aren't interested in the job enough to even complete that part of the application process. So that then those are eliminated. The people that do really bad on that or answer their questions really poorly, then those are eliminated. And then it's kind of a time saver. So that's just one thing that I found that helps. Any tools that you found like that? Any sort of interview tips or tools or softwares for managing employees or payroll or anything like that you found helpful?
I haven't ventured into that yet because we're still kind of like a little close-knit group. And now I have a little bit of an advantage because I am in, so Dr. Goshorn's our medical director, and he has this great little spa. And so I was like, well, that's a perfect environment. So so we're kind of on one side of that. And what's great is the networking there allows us to kind of vet people through. And his practice manager, Dee Dee, is just a wonderful, wonderful person. And so I kind of run people through her, actually, because I'm like, oh, she knows. She's been around long enough. She can, she'll be like, nope, not bringing this one in. Next. So I'm using my human resources really. But I have actually wanted to look into several softwares lately when it comes to task management and even, charting, and because we're still doing paper charting at this point, but we're trying to transition some of it to electronic. So
yeah, paper charting I thought was a pretty good way to start, because you don't need to be electronic for a self-pay practice. But there are a lot of electronic options that could sort of decrease the paper clutter and things out there. Yeah. So one thing I found really helpful was a software. If you would do your own payroll, called Gusto. If anybody's looking for payroll software, it's pretty easy to use. You can set it up yourself, and you can, instead of having to call your accountant every time you need to fix something or do a bonus payment or whatever you want to do, you can literally just log in online and do it yourself, and they give you all the reports and stuff. So I found that one to be pretty helpful. I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff out there, but
I'm going to write that down because I definitely need to start going more automated now that it's one of those things where your processes have to improve, or you spend all your time writing paper checks and doing everything manually.
Exactly. So another thing I'm thinking about as I think through the process of starting a practice is the marketing. What kind of things have you been doing for marketing? What kind of tips do you have for anybody that's worked well for you?
Well, we have a marketing company that after the first year we went with them. They're called Ketamine Media. So they specialize in specifically ketamine clinics, which is great. So I like to have a super specialized company, and they manage our website and they manage our media. we did set up like an Instagram account and just kind of several social media accounts. And it's really cute because I'm not a great millennial. I don't use Instagram or Twitter, so I had to kind of learn it. And then a patient today was like, we tagged you in a post and we called you, they called me Hot Elsa because of the white, yeah. And I was like, what? And so I'm like, how does this work? What am I reading? But it's really cool because, the patients, instead of having like a testimonial, they were able to post, and it was like a picture of us hugging. It was real cute. And they were able to just share their experience on Instagram with their friends in the world and tag us. And I was like, oh, well, that's amazing. That's like free advertisement. So that's wonderful. And I've sponsored several charities locally, which I love to do anyway, because I'm kind of the person that I would run this as a nonprofit forever and ever. It's just, I want to give back. So we did something called Volunteer Odyssey here. And then this year I'm sponsoring some stuff for our local school. And, they put up your little banner. And so you get the marketing publicity stuff there. But you're also helping a cause. It's kind of like a charitable donation marketing combo. Mm-hmm. So and I love to do that stuff. And it's really seemed to work for us.
Yeah, I love that idea. And people might not know, but that's actually, in most cases, it's a complete tax deduction. So not only are you doing marketing, that's a tax deduction, but you're simultaneously helping a local cause. I like doing local things, just like you do. So a local cause or national cause or international cause, whatever you want. But yeah, it can be complete tax write-off. So, I mean, why not do it? I think it's really important to give back if you're an entrepreneur, for sure. Yeah, so when it comes to social media, that's definitely a challenge for sure. I didn't even have an Instagram account until I think I had one from 5 years ago, but I never even logged in. So I couldn't even find my password and make a new one. But until I think it was like December or January when I finally made an Instagram account. What's your advice there, since you were kind of in that same boat for somebody just trying to figure it out? Did you hire a social media manager, or did you start to just kind of get in there and figure it out?
I just got in there and figured it out. And I had friends that were, all about it. So I was like, let's do, girls' night. And you guys show me how to work these weird little apps. And it was actually, I remember being in the OR with an SRNA and one of the students. And I was like, all right, how does this thing work? You got to show me. So I later had them, kind of show me the social media stuff. I don't know. I think my mind is way older than I am. But eventually we did hire the ketamine media, and they amaze me because I kind of look and I'm like, where did that post go? I didn't do that. Where did this come from? But it's, they know what they're doing. So it's kind of wonderful to have people that specialize in it.
Oh, cool. So they're doing a little bit of social media posting for you too.
Yes. And I mean, it's important, though, to educate yourself on social media and to be really careful with the way you respond. If you're responding online to patients or prospective patients or clients, there are people I've found, just kind of like on Facebook, that will post, really aggressive things or controversial things. And I think it's just maybe an attention-seeking thing. I'm not sure. But, you have to be really careful to not respond to that in a negative way, and, make sure you're being the intelligent party.
That's really good advice, and sometimes something I've had challenged with myself in the past. Yeah, apparently there's a name for those. I didn't even know that until recently, but maybe like a year ago, I learned that those people are called trolls, and they just go around and cause issues and talk negative about everything on people's social media. And yeah, so those are social media trolls, and that's sort of what they do to keep themselves feeling good about themselves. They probably have major psychological issues and self-esteem issues.
Just come in.
Yeah. Yep. So you just kind of have to ignore the trolls and block them. Now you can block them on Facebook too, which is nice. If they're really
block one, and it got a little weird. They found my personal Facebook and were sending me repeated messages, and so it got a little bit on the stalker level. And I was like, hey, block this person. So
yeah. Are you doing any sort of traditional marketing, like flyers or networking events locally or anything like that for your marketing?
Not necessarily. I did the mail out flyers in the beginning. I really only got 2 or 3 inquiries from that. And I think I probably sent out 80 to 100, maybe. It was probably closer to 80. Now we did do a local thing, and it was Goshorn's aesthetic clinic as well as ours in combination, where they had the Chamber of Commerce come in, do a ribbon cutting ceremony. And so, when that happens, it's like the local news is there, and other business owners and reporters and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And I did a Chamber of Commerce event where we had a booth, and it was the Health and Wellness Expo is what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just set up a booth and kind of educated people. And so that was a lot of fun too. And
yeah,
I would highly recommend that, because you're running into other people. We ran into another business called Neurosource, who does just some phenomenal work. They do, I can't even run through all the tests they do, but it's a lot of like EEGs and brainwave monitoring. And I was like, wow, in combination, this is some really great neuroscience. So I think the husband's a neuroscientist, and you just meet amazing people and network with these things.
Yeah, that's so true. We found a device I think it was called Brainwave actually, but it's like a portable, really expensive TMS type of device that you can use in your own clinic. And we found that through a Health Expo too, is in New Mexico. So there are definitely some benefits there. One thing we found with the direct mail, like mailing flyers and stuff, is that it's just like what a lot of the real estate investors do when they're trying to look for deals. And it's one of those things that it's sort of like a top of mind sort of strategy. And so sometimes it takes multiple touch points, mailing them once or twice a month for many months before finally somebody will actually pick up the phone and it turns into a lead. That's what we found. We did them pretty regularly for our clinic in Albuquerque, and they worked well, but it takes consistency and doing it over time. But I think social media marketing is a little bit more effective and more cost effective. Yep.
Yeah. And then referrals, once you start getting the credibility with the local providers. And we have a good list of providers now that refer our patients. And that's wonderful, because I think it takes a little time to gain their trust and to see their patients improve. And then all of a sudden, Dr. So-and-so sent me, like, yeah, I know you're the third one this week. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
So it's great.
So what, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of the struggles you're facing right now, and how are you working through them in your practice, as far as like anything that you're finding to be challenging that you're having to work through? We talked about processes already. You're kind of working on those. Is there any other thing that you're kind of struggling with right now that you're looking to get through and to make things more efficient? Or
I think some of the things we've touched on, being the processes and being the hiring, like I'm probably doing way too much clinical and business at the same time, business management. And so I need to find a better balance with that. Another thing is, protocols. I think you're constantly developing the protocols and your policies and procedures, but mainly the protocols. So, as we go along, the science kind of develops. Having a place to share protocols with other clinics, or to a forum where we could, kind of officially share that would be great. Because as of now, it's, we do communicate with each other, but I don't think there's one place where we can go and say, look, this is what we found at our clinic. This is what works, or here's a new study. I think that'd be an amazing thing for us to have. We've gotten people for boosters from other clinics, and I've seen the titrations up, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever your doctor prescribed, we're going to continue. We're not going to just interrupt that protocol. And so it's nice, but the pain, I think, is the one that's more flexible, pain treatment. The depression's pretty, sub-anesthetic, 0.5, 0.75, whatever your range is. But I think the pain patients are the more challenging.
Agreed.
Because you really don't, you've seen the varying research. I mean, I've seen in Europe where they put people in the hospital for a week, and it's like day after day of infusion. And then we have people come in and go, oh, well, this doctor did 1 milligram per kilogram for an hour and it worked. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So that's
definitely a variety of protocols and stuff out there. What are you doing to work on your are you collaborating with anybody right now, or are you kind of just looking at the studies yourselves and creating your own in-house protocols?
We did. We started with our baseline of that 0.5, because that's kind of the research and Yale and what they came out with. We do collaborate with some other clinics, but it's kind of a loosely, loose collaboration, honestly, because whether it be, we have a little app that we use for the ones in Tennessee, the clinics in Tennessee, where we can just kind of chat back and forth and say, what have you seen with this disorder? How did it work? And then I do some collaborating with their psychiatrists as well, because there are some psychiatrists here in town who have said, hey, I researched this protocol. Can I refer them to you for this specifically? And I'm like, well, that's absolutely reasonable, because this is, you've done your research, and so there's no real hard structure for the communication. It's just kind of sharing information at this point and developing it in-house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that people are actually willing to share information with other practices. It's not all a competition. There's definitely room for collaboration. So I love to see that in the different Facebook groups and stuff. So what would you have as far as recommendations for any sort of resources for people who are getting their business off the ground? Do you have any books that you recommend, or any other podcasts that you like to listen to yourself?
Well, other than the Robert Kiyosaki, and that again is just like a mindset book, I wouldn't say there's any specific to the setup, because I kind of went, and I do listen to a lot of different ones. Most of them are like tax-free wealth and, things like that, just kind of strategies to help with the tax burden of being in our field. But as far as the business structure, I actually relied really heavily on the entrepreneurs that I know personally, and the Ketamine Academy course and its, recommendations there.
Okay, cool. I wanted to transition a little bit into the real estate part of things, since we're getting close to the end of our time already. It feels like it's been 5 minutes, but and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But any final parting words of wisdom or advice to anybody looking to start a private practice or a ketamine practice?
I would say, like I said, education is the first step. Always educate yourself. If you're going to partner with someone, make sure that partner and you are on the same page, because if you're an entrepreneurial mindset kind of person and they are someone who's a little bit more fear driven, it's not going to work out most likely in the long run. So you really have to vet partners, medical directors. If you're hiring medical directors separately, make sure you're really picking someone who has the same mindset and the same desire for great results. And don't be scared to take a risk, because business is a risk, and you have to take a risk to achieve anything great in life.
Yep, that's wonderful advice. So thank you for that.